Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Nerd Topic. You know, everybody has a subject matter or a hobby, maybe even a full-out profession that they get extra nerdy about. Well, I want to know what that topic is, and I want to talk about it. Send in your comments. Let us know what you want to talk about on the next episode of our Nerd Topic. Tonight, the subject is Spider-Man. You know, it's about time we got to this because this is huge in the make some noise. Huge in the
Flip.
Flip, flip, flip. Spidey's just huge in the world of the nerddom. It's amazing how disparate it's been with having that character in different movies and owned by different companies because I guess it speaks to the fact that somebody just needs to claim him for the entire of eternity and just continue to make a good run of movies because it's struggling a little bit now, in my opinion. Like, Spidey needs to stay the same character and the same actor for a little while for me to just really like be able to get sink my teeth into it, But so we got a distinguished panel of Spider-Man enthusiasts and connoisseurs. Everybody's right, yeah. Flick your mustache and tighten your tie. Let's just go around Robin and say hi to everybody. We'll start with Kato.
I am Kato from Kato's Kollection. Huge Spider-Man fan, have been forever. But I have a channel on YouTube, Kato's Kollection, where I mostly review G.I. Joe and Transformers for some strange reason, and not Spider-Man. It's stupid, really. It makes no sense whatsoever, but that's what I do.
It's because they're awesome. Don Manigly.
Yes, hello, Don Manigly. On YouTube, although YouTube channel is currently undergoing a little bit of reconstruction, but I am one of the hosts of the Uncaged Voice podcast, which you can find on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, DonnieCage223, and Twitter, the Uncaged Voice podcast at the Donnie Cage. And I'm also a big Spidey fan.
Awesome. Welcome, Don. Matt Delia, say what's up.
What's up? Matt Delia. Been a Spider-Man fan like for as long as I can remember. Comics, movies, games. If it's got Peter Parker Spider-Man on it, I gotta buy it, and usually multiple copies of it. Yeah, just glad to be here, share my immense knowledge with the world.
I thought you were gonna say with the peasants.
No.
I know. And last but certainly not least, Matt J. Thomas. What's up, buddy?
Matt Thomas. Yep, you know who I am. What's up? Been a fan since I came out of the womb. Literally given an action figure when I came out of that womb. No. Follow me on my collectibles page, amazing.collectibles. Haven't been on there in a while, but I'm hoping to start it back up again. Maybe buy some more stuff, show it off. So
that's what's up.
Yeah,
well,
happy to be here.
Glad to have all you guys. Very cool. I was on Kato's show last week, and we had such a rapport, that I was like, I got to bring this cat back on. We're cut off the same ilk, good people. Me and Matt know each other from the comic scene. Me and Don through Matt, and then I'm just meeting Matt J. Thomas, technically, really for the first time. So this is going to be a good hang. Biggest panel I've had. I think I cut the limit off at 4 before, but now we got 5. So it's going to be a crazy show. Let's get talking about Spidey. I think for me, like I kind of gave a little taste of in the beginning, is that the character of Spider-Man it's almost like James Bond. Like, hear me out on this one. James Bond, you know what you're going to get, and there are certain things that you do in a James Bond movie that you have to do in a James Bond movie. He's got to have the car and the gadgets. He's got to be dressed a certain way. He's got to be in fights. There's got to be the sexiness about the whole situation. It's got to be spy stuff. If you don't have those things in a James Bond movie, it doesn't feel like James Bond. There's not enough to that character if he doesn't have that. For Spidey, it's got to be like the neighborhood thing. It's got to be, his struggle with his alter identity, his struggles with his love life, his struggles protecting his Aunt May, his guilty conscience, all that shit. I'm wondering if there is any future for Spider-Man outside of that. So like, let's talk about like if you can have a Spider-Man without those stories, like without those characteristics. I want to start with Matt and what he thinks about this. Do you think like what could possibly happen next that would be new for Spider-Man?
We're talking comics, movies, because I'm like, I have so many answers, and I'm trying to I completely agree with what you said. Certain things that you need for a Spider-Man comic, movie, TV show, you just need that struggle. You got to beat the hell out of Peter Parker.
Right.
And it usually has to be because of his responsibilities as Spider-Man. Which I'll say for the movies and even the comics currently, they've kind of lost that. Like, it's been a little too convenient to be Spider-Man, specifically with Holland. I love Holland's version. I'm a Maguire fanboy. But like, without that, Spider-Man should be a cross and a gift to Peter. And it should greatly impact the people around him, usually negatively. And just seeing how a writer will take Peter and kind of beat him into a corner and then work himself out of that corner.
Right.
Number one, shows the strength of the writer. Number two, shows the strength of the story.
Right.
So like, without that, I don't really think you'd have a good Spider-Man story. You'd have a story, obviously, but I don't think really a good one.
Yeah. Kato, same question.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. Like, the most important thing, and one of the main things that I've always liked about Spider-Man is I grew up like a lot of people. I'm not special in this. Grew up, in a very poor area, did not have a lot, and it made it real easy to kind of click with Peter Parker. He was one of those few comic book characters that, unlike the X-Men, unlike Batman, unlike most of the main popular guys, he always had nothing but stayed honorable anyway. And another thing about him that you always have to have, like Matt D was saying, is that struggle. The only time you give Peter Parker everything and make him a winner is so that an issue later you can rip it all away from him and show that he doesn't have it. That's the only way that works.
Right.
There was a run on Amazing Spider-Man where he had his own company and was making a lot of money. So much less interesting than the Parker that has to sit in his aunt's cellar working on his own equipment, still trying to do the good deed while his whole world is falling around him.
Right.
Everything has to feel like it was his fault. Every single loss has to be another weight on his shoulder. He can't keep the girl. As much as we love MJ, you can't keep the girl.
Right.
It always has to come back to him feeling responsible for whatever is going on around him. Even when, as the reader, we can take on the other role of saying, dude, that wasn't your fault. Like, right, you would tell a good friend, like, there was nothing you could do about that. You were doing your best. It has to weigh heavy on him. You take that away. I like Tom Holland, right? But he kind of has too much going for him. He's too, he had Tony Stark. He lost Tony. That was sad. That was his Uncle Ben moment that we got to see on film. But in the process, he gains badass suits and access to pretty much anything he wants to do. Yeah. We didn't get to see that. I think the Tobey Maguire story told it as good as it needed to be, and that was he got the shit kicked out of him all the time. Right. He just couldn't be happy. That's what you have to have for a Spider. Going forward, that's what they got to do. They got to get back to basics on him being poor and broke and making it anyway, having to fix his own suits and stuff like that. That's what matters.
Peter has to rely on Peter.
That's right.
Say that again.
Peter has to rely on Peter. I agree with everything you said, Kato. Like, the Parker Industries stuff, I'd argue, was probably the lowest point in the character's history.
Yeah, well, I think that was worse than the Clone Saga.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Matt J. Thompson, I know you got some thought about the comics. What do you think? Do you agree with those statements, lowest point, or do you like the way they fling Spike?
Not to sound like a broken record, but yeah, I mean, if you take away everything about him that makes him Spider-Man, he's really just like anyone else. And I think that was the beauty of, Stan Lee's idea of making this not only a superhero, but someone who's relatable, and he can be relatable for anyone. And it's not just, being broke. It's also struggling in school, or, having tough time with his, his aunt and uncle, or, he's having girlfriend issues, or, he just doesn't know what he wants to do in life yet. And he's trying to figure out what he wants to do in life. But then on top of that, he's got this big, big responsibility of being like a protector of like New York and Queens, and There's just so much on him that it's the struggle that makes him who he is. And I think one of the number one things is, I mean, yes, Tony was, like his Uncle Ben. I mean, I never really agreed with that, to be honest. I didn't really favor that because, without Uncle Ben, there was really no reason for him to be, who he is. Because of Uncle Ben's death, he became who he is, and, everything that happened after that. And I think that's one of the things that Tom Holland's movies is really, really losing. It doesn't have. And I think I think in the next movie, we really need something about Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
I don't think we can have another movie without any talk of Uncle Ben. I mean, the only thing we got was on his suitcase in Far From Home, it said Peter, Ben, Parker. That's all. Yeah. And that's the most we've gotten so far.
Right.
I think. Yeah.
Don Manigly. I know you have experience acting. So like in the movie world, what do you think is the best rendition of Spidey? Like what's your favorite Spidey movie and why?
So my favorite Spidey movie is a toss-up between Spider-Man 1 and 2, and I'm referring to the Sam Raimi trilogy.
Right.
I haven't disliked the new MCU Spider-Man movies. I think Tom Holland's done a good job playing the young Spidey who's still really naive and trying to find his footing as a superhero. I do not like the fact that his suit is this high-tech thing that was just gifted to him by Tony Stark. I like the idea that Spidey makes his own suit, makes his own web shooters. I love the idea that this is a kid who is just an average middle-class person, but he's still a scientific genius who can come up with all of his own gadgets. I think if you would have done a couple of movies where he had to rely mostly on his own resources, maybe getting some occasional help from other members of the Avengers, that would have worked a little bit better.
Right.
And then somewhere down the line, you could do a movie where he's got access to all of Tony Stark's high-tech equipment and everything. It would have been great. But
it almost would have worked. Oops, sorry. Go for it.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say it almost would have worked better if if both of the MCU Spider-Man movies came out before Endgame, because then him getting that ultimate kill suit at the end of it just would have had a little more power. Like, all right, you're with the big dogs now. You're fighting with the Avengers. We'll give you this suit. And then he wouldn't have it later. Just go back to his normal uniform later. But I almost feel like the pacing of the movies and the Avengers, because they got the property a little late. People weren't sure if Marvel Studios was going to own Spidey and stuff. So I think that kind of messed that up a little bit. But they did a hell of a job. But I agree with you with that, Don. I'm not sure. There's something missing to Spider-Man. It's almost as if the movies are riding off of just the knowledge that people have in their collective consciousness of what Spidey is. It's just like Batman.
Just a brand, like, oh, it's Spider-Man. They'll come.
Right.
They'll sit in the seats. It's Spider-Man.
Right.
And I completely agree with you with what you were saying about, in my opinion, like, I do like Tom Holland's rendition of Peter. I loved the Iron Spider suit, but I felt like the Iron Spider suit would have been would have been much more of like a jaw-dropping moment if that was the only tech suit.
Yeah.
Like the fact that the Homecoming suit was basically the same suit, just without the tentacles.
Yeah.
Kind of took something away from it. Didn't really make it as special. Like if they would have made him, if he would have made a cloth suit and then got that suit, it would have been more of a contrast, more of a juxtaposition almost. But it just kind of feels like he keeps like up, like he has these suits on lease from Stark Industries. It feels like. But I would just love to see some just good old fashioned Peter relying on Peter. Yeah. Hell, give me the origin as like a 6-episode Disney Plus show. That origin, I would argue, is probably the best in all of fiction.
Yeah,
agreed.
And I agree, Matt, but I do have to cut you off there and say one thing though about the origin. So we saw the origin in its entirety in the Sam Raimi trilogy, which they did a great job with. It was the first time really seeing Peter's origin in live action. Then they decided, okay, we're going to reboot it. All right, fine. You're going to reboot it, new actor and everything. And I like Andrew Garfield as an actor. Don't misunderstand me. Problem I had with that first Amazing Spider-Man movie, well, number one, it wasn't amazing. And number two, is that it just retread all of the things we had already seen in the Sam Raimi trilogy. And it was basically just kind of like all right, I've
Just
seen
darker.
I know what's going to happen next. Yeah, darker. We have to make it darker.
And with a lot of stuttering, I'm Spider-Man.
So the big thing they could have solved all that in the Holland movies if the opening credits were his origin. Just give us
I love that
opening
idea.
credit origins. Give us the Uncle Ben death. Make it his fault. Make it weigh heavy on him. Give a little Amazing Spider-Man animated series voiceover opening credit scene to it to explain everything. Because I do agree that they, much like the Superman movies and stuff and the DC movies, they relied too much on the fact that Don is right. They retread all that old ground multiple times. So it's like, we don't want to do that again. So they went extreme the other direction and just ignored it. If they would have given us, you know, a 2.5, 3 minute opening credit scene where it was still shots or quick scenes of him getting his powers, him going into the store, him ignoring the thief killing Uncle Ben, and then okay, we're here. That's all you need to do.
Just something to sorry, man.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
Just something to show that it happened.
Yeah.
You know, like Ben is just such a integral figure in Peter's life. He's the reason he keeps being Spider-Man.
That's right.
Without that initial tragedy, what the hell's the point? He keeps going to avoid that from ever happening again. So I completely agree.
And that's the thing. Tom Holland's Spider-Man hasn't experienced any real tragedy yet, at least not on screen, other than the death of Tony Stark, which was a tragedy for all the MCU heroes because they all were friends with him.
That's the perfect point. That's the perfect point.
Everyone mourned, not just Peter.
Right.
Didn't feel like it was just him that was mourning. And you know, the other thing, Matt Delia told me about this, I don't know, maybe a little bit less than a year ago, that there was that other idea that they were going to do instead of the part in Far From Home when Mysterio said if you were good enough, maybe Tony would still be alive. Matt was telling me that they were actually going to do, they were thinking of doing if you were good enough, maybe Ben would have still been, Uncle Ben would have still been alive. I mean, I think they should have done something like that in Far From Home. I think instead of that, like, you know, misty, foggy graveyard scene and then it's Tony Stark's grave, I think it should have been something like he ends up in the middle of nowhere, like just on a street in Queens, and it's like Uncle Ben, he gets shot, and then like Peter just runs over to him and he's just like, no, oh my god, not again. I think we should have seen something like that. And I feel like ever since Raimi, you know, the character of Uncle Ben has just gone down exponentially. And nothing against Martin Sheen, but it didn't feel like an Uncle Ben to me. It really just felt like an uncle that was just on his ass all the time. It didn't really feel like, you know, he was on his ass yelling at him all the time. He never really gave him anything inspirational. Like he never really said much. I mean, even the quote of him talking about responsibility, he was saying about his dad, Peter's dad. He wasn't even saying it came from him, saying it came from his dad. I mean, we didn't even get it from him, from his dad, who's like not even really in the comics. But
what is everybody's least favorite Spider-Man moment? Let's start with Kato.
Dancing Tobey Maguire.
Yep.
I mean, there's plenty of comic moments, but that will always stand out as being like just horrible.
Kato, you're killing me, man. Man, broke my heart.
Hey man, it breaks my heart to have to say it.
Yeah.
But it's funny because in my head I always hear, you can tell by the way I use my walk, and you know that's what I hear in my head, but I know that wasn't in the scene. But I was like, man, that's just don't do that. That was bad. Plenty of bad comic moments. There's plenty of stuff like that. Sure. But that's the first thing that comes to mind. Dancing Toby.
It's almost like Dancing Toby. It was before. The only reason I don't forgive it at all, because I was very upset about that, because I love the first two Spideys in that trilogy, and then that one kind of falls short for me. Although I love the way the Sandman looked. I think he looked epic, and it was cool. Yeah, like great. There's so many good things about that movie, but I felt like it was before they really were showing superheroes take a dark turn. It was almost in the era of as dark as they got was Superman in the bar plucking the peanuts into the mirror and that dark Superman moment. You know, he was dark for like 10 minutes in the movie and then he turns. It was before the Venoms. It was before the Deadpools. It was before the public ever had any of that. So I just think they were afraid to really make him hurt anybody or kill anybody. So he just had to be this like alternate personality. It just didn't land for me at all.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a bygone era of superhero filmmaking.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a Raimi fanboy. I don't hate the third movie as much as most people. There's certain aspects of it that I don't forgive. Like Sandman being Uncle Ben's killer had its problems. Maybe I just need to take my nostalgia glasses off. But yeah, it they tried something and most of it didn't work with that third one.
It was a very Sam Raimi moment that belonged in Xena and Hercules, but not in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt J. Thomas, what's your least favorite Spider-Man moment?
Ooh. You know, I'm probably gonna have to go with the dancing Spider-Man because you know, if that scene was not in Spider-Man 3, all around that would be my favorite trilogy ever. But it was just that one scene where it's like, I give up. You know, like I mean, the first 30 minutes and the last 30 minutes of that movie was great. The battle, the beginning of the movie, and then it's just like that one little part, like in the middle, they were just like, let's do whatever we want with it.
Yeah, let's have fun with it.
Yeah.
Don, same question, buddy.
My least favorite Spidey moment is probably, well, this might be a controversial one, but it's actually not any of the movies, even though I really didn't like Amazing Spider-Man 2 at all. So we can kind of throw that in there if we want, just as a whole. That was kind of a train wreck. But when they did the whole one more day into brand new day storyline transition, the lead up to that, if you remember, was Civil War with Spider-Man unmasking for the entire world.
Epic.
Great moment.
And it was a great moment, but the problem was, in many ways, by them introducing that, the writers wrote themselves into a corner with that storyline, because now the whole world, heroes and villains alone, know who Spider-Man is. And it gets to the point where he makes a deal with Mephisto to end his marriage, erase people's memory of who he really, of the fact that he's Spider-Man. And now we're just going to do a fresh reboot from the very beginning, like nothing happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they needed to do like a whole 3-issue thing to show what's canon now, and like how like in this new what Mephisto made us, the Doctor Strange cast a spell, and it was not good. It was not good.
The Mephisto MacGuffin.
That's right. Yeah, you run the risk in any of these long-lasting franchises, and Spider-Man is up there. It's not up there with Superman, but I mean, it's up there. You know, I would argue that Spider-Man is the most popular superhero in the world. I don't know if that's actually true, but
It's 100% has been for the longest time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, Batman, Superman, Spidey may be at the top. I mean, I really think Spider-Man may be at the top. Superman's dated, you know what I mean? And like, we haven't had some good Superman shit in a while, man. That's a tough character to write for, and it's boring in a way. Spidey is a great character. I don't know if Spider-Man's better than Batman. That's a tough one. Like, that's a real tough one.
They have two of the best rogues galleries in all of comics, film.
Very much.
Yeah. 100%. Side note, I've always thought that Batman would have made a better Marvel hero than a DC hero anyway.
Interesting.
I agree.
His origin is much more Marvel-esque than it is DC-esque anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do a little blitz round. Let's think favorite Spidey actor. We'll start with Kato.
Tobey Maguire.
Don.
Tobey Maguire.
Matt.
Tobey Maguire.
Matt J.
I even have to say, of course, it's Tobey Maguire.
Tobey, right? Cool. Hottest MJ. Kato.
Oh God. Any one of the comic versions and almost none of the movie ones.
Good answer. Good answer. Don.
I gotta go with the '90s Spidey cartoon MJ. She, to me, was the hottest MJ.
Nice. Matt Delia.
I would probably say the comic one, because even though I liked Kirsten Dunst, the chemistry between Peter and MJ is much more apparent in the comics because they're such night and day, which makes sense why they would attract to each other. So yeah, definitely the comics.
Yeah. Matt J. Thomas, favorite MJ.
I'm gonna have to go with Dawn on this one easily. The animated series. I mean, I don't know like how it was possible, even for a kids show, but somehow they made like one of the most gorgeous women ever in an animated show.
Yeah. I gotta throw in some of those J. Scott Campbell MJs from some of those comic book covers. They are
Exactly that.
amazing. Yeah, where she's wearing the shirt, she's sitting on the couch, like hot, man.
Did you guys ever see the Art Germ variant for the Amazing Mary Jane #1?
I probably haven't. It's in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
It's her. It was a recent. It was like before like the COVID shutdown and stuff. It's like late 2019. The book. The story sucked. But that issue 1, it was a variant, which definitely look it up. Beautiful cover.
Nice.
Drew her in such a way where great drawing.
Nice.
I got it from Blue Line, Pete.
That's what's up.
I overstepped the Spider-Man fourth wall, and I'm marrying a redhead, so top that.
Nice.
There you go. Yeah. Well, guys, we were at a minute mark. I can't believe this episode flew by that quick. 35 minutes down the drain, just like that. We got to do a number 2, man. Let's meet in a month or so and do a Spidey reboot.
Awesome.
It's been a pleasure. I feel
Can
like
we be younger?
Yes. Yeah, we'll go back in time, unblipped. Yeah, we'll do the whole thing, you know. But thanks a lot, guy. Kato, Don, Matt J. You guys are the best. Thanks for watching Nerd Topic, everybody. Zoom is going to cut us off abruptly and rudely, so I apologize if this just zaps us away. But we'll see you next time, and stick around for a couple months. We'll do a sequel. Spidey fans, peace, you guys.